Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. If you're listening right now, I'm guessing you're either studying abroad or you're planning to. Maybe you're in your first semester, or maybe you've already been overseas for a year or two. Either way, there's one big question that every international student faces at some point. How do I stay motivated? Part 1. The first step. Why motivation fades. Let's be honest for a second. When people talk about studying abroad, they often show the highlight reel. Smiling pictures in front of famous buildings, new friends from different countries, beautiful libraries, cozy coffee shops. And yes, those things are real. But there's another side that almost nobody posts about. The quiet moments when you feel lost, tired, or just unmotivated. If you've ever had those moments, the mornings when you can't get out of bed, the afternoons when your head is full but your heart feels empty, this episode is for you. Because motivation doesn't disappear for no reason. It fades, slowly, and usually for very understandable causes. I've been working with international students for nearly 2 decades, and if there's one universal truth, it's this. Motivation is not a personality trait, it's an environment you build. And that environment is constantly changing when you live abroad. So today, let's break down why motivation fades, what's really going on underneath, and what you can do to start rebuilding it. The honeymoon phase. When everything feels new, let's go back to the beginning, your first weeks abroad. Everything felt exciting, didn't it? You were discovering new streets, trying new food, hearing languages all around you. Even small things like buying groceries or finding your classroom felt like little adventures. You might have thought, this is it. This is the life I dreamed of. And that feeling is amazing. It's called the honeymoon phase. It's like when you start a new relationship. Everything feels magical because it's different. But as weeks go by, that novelty starts to fade. You stop noticing the small things. The same streets you used to take pictures of now just feel like the way to class. The same weather that felt refreshing now just feels cold, or too hot, or tiring. You start missing familiar things. Your favorite coffee place, your mom's cooking, your language. That's when the first cracks in motivation appear. It's not that you're bored or ungrateful. Your brain is just adapting. Novelty always brings excitement, and routine always brings reality. The problem isn't that reality appears, it's that we didn't expect it. So the first mindset shift is simple but powerful. Losing excitement doesn't mean losing purpose. It just means you've entered the next stage, the real one, where growth happens. The invisible weight of constant adaptation. Living. Abroad means you're learning every single day, not just in class, but in life. You learn how to read local documents, how to talk to people, how to do simple things like open a bank account or explain a problem to your landlord. Each of those small things takes mental energy. You might not notice it, but your brain is constantly working extra hours. At first, it feels exciting. Wow, I'm learning so much. But over time, that extra cognitive load becomes heavy. You might feel emotionally tired without knowing why. You might say, I didn't even do much today, but I feel exhausted. That's not laziness. That's adaptation fatigue. It's a real thing. When everything around you is new, your brain is burning energy faster, processing new words, accents, cultural cues, and habits. So when you lose motivation, ask yourself, am I actually unmotivated, or am I just tired from adapting all the time? Most of the time, it's the second one. The fix? Give yourself mental rest that's truly restorative. Not scrolling social media, not watching random videos, but rest that helps your brain recover. Walks, music, journaling, calling a friend from home, or even cooking something familiar. Think of it like charging your emotional battery. You wouldn't expect your phone to run all day without recharging, right? Same goes for your mind. The mismatch between expectations and reality. Here's another reason motivation fades. We fall in love with the idea of studying abroad more than the reality of it. Before leaving your country, you imagine yourself thriving, fluent, confident, independent. You imagine building a whole new version of yourself. And that's good. That vision helps you take the leap. But once you arrive, reality often moves slower. Your English isn't improving as fast as you hoped. Your grades are okay, but not great. You feel lonely sometimes. And suddenly, that perfect mental image starts to crack. You start thinking, maybe I'm not doing enough, or worse, maybe I'm not cut out for this. But here's the truth. You're not failing. You're just in progress. The gap between expectation and reality is not a sign of failure. It's the space where learning actually happens. Let me give you an example. A student named Diego once told me, "Before I came to Australia, I thought I'd become fluent in 6 months. I'd watch YouTubers and think, yeah, I can do that. But after 6 months, I still made mistakes every day. I felt stupid. So I asked him, what do you do when you make a mistake? He said, I laugh, but deep down I feel embarrassed. Then I asked, what would you do if your friend made the same mistake? He said, I'd tell him not to worry. I smiled and said, then why don't you treat yourself like your own friend? A week later, he came back and said, you know what? I realized my goal isn't to be perfect, it's to be functional. That mindset alone brought back my motivation. You see? The problem wasn't his skill, it was his expectation. So next time you feel demotivated, ask yourself, am I comparing myself to my old expectations or to my real growth? The 3 silent killers of motivation. After years of talking to students, I've found there are 3 silent forces that slowly drain motivation: isolation, burnout, and lack of purpose. Let's look at each one. Isolation, you can be surrounded by people and still feel lonely. In a new country, everything feels unfamiliar. The humor, the social cues, even how people show friendship. You start feeling like an outsider, even when nobody means to exclude you. That quiet sense of not belonging can eat away at your confidence and make studying feel pointless. The antidote? Don't wait for belonging. Build it. Join a small group, volunteer, talk to classmates after lectures. It's not about quantity, it's about genuine connection. Even one friend who really understands you can change everything. Burnout. Many international students try to do everything. Study full-time, work part-time, explore, cook, manage bills, stay fit, and keep family updated. That's not sustainable. Burnout doesn't always look like collapse. Sometimes it looks like numbness. You stop feeling excitement, joy, or curiosity. When that happens, stop pushing. Rest strategically. A rested student learns faster than a busy one. Lack of purpose. When you lose sight of why you came, everything feels heavier. Grades become meaningless. Routines feel empty. You start asking, what's the point? But purpose isn't something you find once. It's something you renew regularly. At the end of each week, take 5 minutes to write down 1 sentence. This week, I studied for deadline because it helps me become sad down on. That small reflection reconnects daily effort with long-term purpose. It's simple, but it works. Turning awareness into recovery. Now that you understand the main reasons motivation fades, let's talk about rebuilding it. There's no magic switch. Motivation is not about hype, it's about alignment. When your energy, goals, and actions are aligned, motivation flows naturally. Here's a simple 3-step method to realign yourself. Pause and identify what's draining you. Write it down. Is it tiredness? Homesickness? Pressure? Sometimes naming the problem already reduces its power. Do 1 small reset action. Not a big change, just 1 small act of care. Cook your favorite meal. Go outside for 20 minutes. Watch something in your native language. These moments rebuild emotional balance. Reconnect with your why. Read an old message from your parents, a journal entry, or an email from when you were applying for your visa. Remember the energy that got you here. That version of you is still inside. You just need to hear them again. 6. A mindset that helps. Progress, not perfection. When motivation is low, perfectionism becomes your enemy. You start thinking, if I can't do it perfectly, why try? But progress is what actually sustains you. If today you studied 30 minutes instead of 2 hours, good. If you spoke to one local person even though you were shy, good. If you failed a quiz but learned from it, that's growth. Motivation grows when you measure effort, not only outcome. Try this small nightly ritual. Before bed, ask yourself, what's one small thing I did today that future me will thank me for? Write it down. Do that for 10 days. You'll be amazed how quickly your motivation starts to rebuild itself, not because life changed, but because your focus did. Final thoughts. You're doing better than you think. Let me end this first part with something I tell every student who doubts themselves. You are living in 2 worlds at once, your past and your future. That's not easy, but it's brave. If you're listening to this right now, that means you're still showing up, still learning, still trying. And that alone means you haven't lost your motivation. It's just resting, waiting for you to notice it again. So don't fight the low days. Understand them. Don't punish yourself for being tired. Rest with purpose. And most importantly, don't forget how far you've come. Because even on the days when you feel like you're going nowhere, you're actually building resilience, empathy, and independence. The 3 things that make you unstoppable later in life. In the next episode, we'll explore the emotional roller coaster of studying abroad, how to navigate the highs and lows without losing your sense of self. For now, take a slow breath, smile, and remind yourself, you've got this. You're not lost. You're just learning. Part 2. The emotional roller coaster of studying abroad. You know, when people imagine studying abroad, they often picture a picture-perfect version of life. Exploring beautiful campuses, drinking coffee in cozy cafes, posting travel photos, and making new friends from around the world. But let's be honest, reality is a little more complicated. When you actually live abroad, there's this mix of emotions that hits you. Excitement, loneliness, anxiety, curiosity, homesickness, all at the same time. It's what I like to call the emotional roller coaster of studying abroad. So, in this part, let's talk about what that roller coaster feels like. The ups, the downs, and how to stay motivated even when it gets rough. Because trust me, every international student goes through it, even if they don't talk about it openly. Phase 1. The honeymoon stage. At the beginning, everything feels amazing. The first few weeks, maybe even months, you feel like you're living your dream. You walk through your new city, amazed by everything. The architecture, the language, the people, the food. Even the small things like taking public transport or going to a local grocery store feel like an adventure. You're so motivated. You study hard. You want to make friends, explore, learn, and take pictures of every little thing. It's like falling in love with a new version of life. But after the honeymoon phase, things slowly begin to shift. Phase 2, the culture shock at. Some point, maybe after a month or 2, the excitement fades a little. You start missing familiar things. Your favorite food, your family, the sound of your language, even the smell of your home city. You might find that you're suddenly tired more often. Or you get frustrated by little things, like people not understanding your accent, or the cafeteria food being bland. This is what psychologists call culture shock. That emotional dip when the new culture feels strange, and you begin to realize that you're not a tourist anymore. You actually live here now, and you know what? It's completely normal. In fact, if you don't feel it, that's unusual. Some students deal with culture shock quietly. Others feel it deeply. They cry. They isolate themselves. They even consider giving up. I've talked to students who said, I just want to go home. I can't handle this anymore. But that's the thing. This phase doesn't mean you're failing. It's part of adapting. It's your brain adjusting to a new environment. You're basically rewiring how you think and how you see the world. Phase 3. The dip. When motivation hits the floor now. Let's talk about the lowest point of the roller coaster. When motivation disappears completely. You wake up and think, what am I doing here? You feel like you're stuck between two worlds. You don't fully belong to your home country anymore, but you don't quite fit into this new place either. You start skipping social events. You might even start skipping classes, not because you're lazy, but because you're emotionally drained. This is when most students lose focus, and it's dangerous because it sneaks up on you slowly. You stop exploring. You stop trying new things. You stop feeling excited. Everything becomes a routine. And when studying abroad becomes just routine, motivation tends to vanish. If this sounds familiar, don't panic. It's not the end of the story. It's just another curve on the roller coaster. How to survive the dip so. How do you get your motivation back when it feels like everything's falling apart? Here are a few practical ways that actually work. Not the typical just stay positive kind of advice, but real strategies that students have used. Find your anchor. Your anchor is something stable that makes you feel grounded, like going for a walk every morning, journaling before bed, or calling your family once a week. It's not about avoiding problems. It's about creating small routines that remind you who you are and why you're here. Talk to other international students. This one's huge. You'll be surprised how many people are going through the same emotions. Sharing your experience can help you realize you're not alone. You might even end up laughing about the little cultural misunderstandings that once made you cry. Celebrate small wins. Don't wait for big achievements. Celebrate the tiny victories. Finishing a project, cooking a decent meal, surviving a week without overspending, or successfully explaining something in your second language. These little wins add up, and they remind you that you're growing, even when you don't notice it. Revisit your why. Ask yourself again, why did I choose to study abroad? Was it to get a better education? To challenge yourself? To grow as a person? To make your family proud? Your why is your fuel. When motivation runs out, reconnecting with your original reason can reignite that spark. Phase 4. The adjustment. After surviving the dip, something amazing happens. You start adapting. You begin to understand the culture better. You pick up the local habits, you make a few genuine friends, and suddenly, things don't feel as hard as before. It's not that everything becomes easy, but you've built resilience. You've grown stronger without realizing it. You've learned to handle life in 2 languages, 2 systems, 2 worlds. And that's something powerful. Your motivation now isn't about excitement, it's about balance. You've found a rhythm that works for you. You wake up and think, okay, I can do this. And that's when studying abroad starts to feel like living abroad. A real story. Maria from Brazil. Let me share a quick story about a student I met named Maria from Brazil. When she first moved to Canada for her master's, she was so enthusiastic. But after a few months, she told me she started crying every night. She said, I felt invisible. I didn't understand the jokes. I couldn't express myself fully in English. And even simple things like small talk felt exhausting. She almost gave up. But instead of isolating herself, she decided to join a student club. Not a big one, just a small Latin dance club. There, she met other international students, some from Asia, Africa, Europe, all struggling with the same feelings. She said that's when everything changed. Dancing made her feel connected again. It reminded her that she could still be herself, even far from home. Her motivation came back. Not because her classes got easier, but because her heart felt lighter. Sometimes, motivation isn't about working harder. It's about feeling connected to others, to yourself, to the moment you're living in. Phase 5. The growth and. Finally, the last phase, growth. One day, you'll realize that you're not the same person who left home. You've developed empathy, adaptability, confidence, and self-awareness. You understand that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of it. And you'll notice that your motivation doesn't depend on external things anymore. Not on grades, not on friends, not even on circumstances. It comes from within. That's the ultimate goal of studying abroad. Not just earning a degree, but evolving into someone who can handle life anywhere in the world. So if you're feeling lost right now, remember, this roller coaster isn't permanent. Every dip has a rise, and every tear you shed is proof that you're growing. Closing thoughts for this part in this episode, we've looked at the emotional stages of studying abroad. The excitement, the culture shock, the dip, the adjustment, and the growth. These stages are like chapters in your story, and every student's story is different. But one thing's for sure, the journey is worth it. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll doubt yourself. But at the end, you'll look back and realize that every single moment, even the hard ones, taught you something valuable. So take a deep breath. You're doing better than you think. Keep going, because the best version of you is already in the making. Part 3. Building a support system and finding belonging. When you first arrive in a new country, you probably think motivation comes from excitement. New people, new places, new opportunities. But after the first few months, something deeper becomes clear. Motivation doesn't come from the newness of things. It comes from connection. And that's what we're going to talk about in this part. How to build a support system and truly feel like you belong, even when you're far away from home. Because no matter how strong or independent you think you are, no one stays motivated in isolation. We all need people. We all need community. Why connection matters. Let me start with something simple but powerful. Motivation isn't just about discipline or willpower. It's about emotional energy. Think about it. When you feel supported, seen, and understood, everything feels easier, right? You study better, you think clearer, you even sleep better. But when you feel alone, even small tasks start to feel heavy. So if you're trying to stay motivated while studying abroad, don't just focus on studying harder. Focus on connecting smarter. Let's look at a few layers of connection. With others, with your environment, and with yourself. 1. Building your circle. Finding people who get you. The first and most obvious step is finding your people, the ones who understand what you're going through, or at least respect it. When you move abroad, you basically start from zero. No family, no old friends, no familiar faces. That blank slate can be freeing but also terrifying, so you have to build your circle from scratch. And that takes courage. It means introducing yourself when you'd rather stay quiet. It means showing up at an event even when you're tired. It means trying again after awkward small talk. But trust me, one genuine friend abroad can make all the difference. Let me tell you about Kevin, a student from Vietnam I once coached. When he arrived in Melbourne, he was super shy. His English was okay, but he was scared of speaking. For the first 3 months, he went from class to his apartment and back. No clubs. No activities, no parties. He said, I was studying hard, but I still felt empty. One day, his professor encouraged him to join a student film club. He hesitated, but went anyway. And that changed everything. He met people who loved movies as much as he did. They didn't care about his accent or grammar. They cared about his ideas. That's how he built his confidence, his circle, and his sense of belonging. Now he's one of the most active members in the club. He told me later, it wasn't the classes that made me stay motivated. It was the people. So yeah, find your people. They don't have to be from your country or even speak your language. They just have to be people who see you. 2, join communities. Not just groups. Here's a small but important distinction. A group is where people meet, but a community is where people connect. You can join 1,000 Facebook groups and still feel lonely. But if you join one real community, like a volunteering project, a campus club, or even a local church or sports team, you'll start to feel grounded. Communities give you routine, belonging, and identity. They remind you that you're part of something bigger than yourself. You could join a cooking club and learn to make dishes from other cultures, or maybe join a debate club, a photography group, or a local gym class. It doesn't matter what, as long as you show up, engage, and give it time. The magic of community is that it doesn't happen instantly. You might feel awkward at first, maybe even ignored, but keep showing up. Connection grows slowly, like roots, but stay connected with home, but in a healthy Here's a delicate balance, keeping in touch with home without getting stuck there emotionally. It's easy to fall into the trap of spending all your free time talking to friends or family back home. You watch the same shows, gossip about the same things, and before you know it, your mind never really left your hometown. Now I get it. Talking to loved ones feels safe. It's comforting. But if you do it too much, it can hold you back from building your new life abroad. Try to create a rhythm that works for you, like a weekly call with your parents or a weekend catch-up with friends. That way you stay connected but not consumed. Think of it like this. Home is your root, not your cage. You can love where you came from and still grow where you are. 4. Redefine what home means at some point. Every international student faces this strange question. Where is home now? You start missing your country. But when you visit, you feel a little different, like a guest. And in your new country, you still feel like an outsider sometimes. That's normal. You're evolving. So maybe home isn't a single place anymore. Maybe it's a feeling, a sense of belonging you build wherever you go. Home can be your favorite cafe, your roommate, your study desk, or even the park where you sit and think. Once you realize that, everything changes. You stop chasing the perfect place and start creating your own version of belonging. 5. Find mentors, people who've been there. Another big secret to staying motivated abroad? Find someone who's already walked the path you're on. It could be a senior student, a professor, a local friend, or even a staff member at your university. Having a mentor doesn't mean you need to meet every week. Sometimes, just one good conversation can change your direction. A mentor can tell you things like which mistakes to avoid, how to balance work and study, how to handle visa stress or part-time jobs, or simply how to deal with loneliness. You don't have to struggle alone. There are people who genuinely want to help. You just have to ask. 6. The power of giving back. Now, here's something people often overlook. Helping others is actually one of the strongest ways to feel motivated yourself. When you volunteer, tutor, or even just help a new student find their class, you're not just being kind. You're reminding yourself that you matter. There's a kind of emotional energy that comes from giving. It breaks the cycle of self-focus and brings purpose. Because when you're abroad, it's easy to become trapped in your own thoughts, your goals, your grades, your worries. But the moment you help someone else, your world expands again. I once met a student named Aisha from Morocco, who volunteered as a campus buddy for new students. She told me, every time I helped someone else adjust, I felt less lost myself. That's powerful. So if you're feeling lonely or stuck, try giving a little bit of your time or kindness. It might give you back something even greater, perspective. 7. Learn to be okay with in-between. Building a support system doesn't mean you'll never feel lonely again. You will, even surrounded by people. You'll have moments where you feel like you don't quite fit anywhere, and that's okay. That's what growth feels like. You're between cultures, between versions of yourself, between the person you were and the one you're becoming. Instead of fighting that feeling, learn to accept it. Make peace with the in-between, because that's where transformation happens. When you stop chasing certainty and start embracing the messiness, you'll notice something. The loneliness starts to fade, and what's left is calm confidence. 8. Connection with yourself. Let's end this part by talking about the most important connection of all, the one with yourself. You can have 100 friends and still feel lost if you're not in tune with who you are. So take time to know yourself. Not the version people expect, but the version that's quietly growing through all this change. Journaling helps. So does walking alone without your phone. Ask yourself simple but honest questions. What do I actually want from this experience? What am I proud of lately? What am I still afraid of? The more honest you are with yourself, the stronger you'll become. Because when you know who you are, you stop trying so hard to belong. You just do. Closing thoughts for this part. So, to build a support system while studying abroad, remember this. Find your people, the ones who understand your story. Join real communities, places where you can grow roots, stay connected with home. But keep space to grow. Redefine. Homikong. Make it something you can carry inside you. Seek mentors. They can save you years of trial and error. Give back. Helping others helps you find purpose. Accept the in-between. That's where growth happens. Stay close to yourself. Your truest friend is you. You don't need a huge circle, just a few real connections that make you feel seen and safe. Because at the end of the day, motivation doesn't come from endless energy or perfect discipline. It comes from belonging. And belonging, my friend, is something you can build. One conversation, one smile, and one act of courage at a time. Part 4. The power of purpose and long-term vision. When you first decide to study abroad, there is usually a clear reason. Maybe you want a better education, a particular degree, or a chance to experience another culture. Those reasons are the seeds of purpose. But purpose alone, when it sits far in the future, can feel intangible. After months of classes, assignments, and small daily struggles, that distant goal can start to look blurry. That's why building a long-term vision, one you can connect to daily, is essential for sustained motivation. In this part, I'll walk you through how to define a meaningful purpose, break it down so it fuels everyday action, and keep it flexible enough to grow as you do. Let's start with a definition that's simple but useful. Purpose is the why behind your actions. Vision is the picture of where those actions are taking you. Purpose answers, why am I doing this? Vision answers, what does success look like? Both are important. Purpose gives emotion and meaning. Vision gives direction and clarity. A big problem I see with many students is that they treat purpose like a signpost rather than a map. They think, I'm here to get a degree, and then wait for the degree to magically change everything. That's not how it works. Purpose needs to be alive. It needs to be translated into daily language. Ask yourself, what does getting that degree actually enable you to do? Does it let you apply for specific jobs? Travel more freely? Gain independence from your family's expectations? Teach others? Each answer becomes a different kind of purpose. Here's a practical framework I recommend. It's short but very effective. I call it the 3-layer vision. Layer 1, immediate why. This is your day-to-day reason. It could be a sentence like, I want to be proud of my daily work, or I want to improve my English so I can speak confidently in class. Immediate why keeps the day meaningful. When you wake up and feel like skipping study, you remind yourself why today's work matters. Layer 2, near-term outcome. This is your semester-level vision. It might be, by the end of this semester, I'll have an average of B+, and I'll have presented in class twice. Or I'll build a portfolio of 3 projects to show employers. Near-term outcomes make the semester manageable, concrete, milestones that you can measure and celebrate. Layer 3, long-term impact. This is your 5-year vision. What do you want to create with your education? I want to work in sustainable marketing for a company that makes ethical products. Or I want to start a social enterprise that empowers rural students. Long-term impact is the emotional anchor that keeps you engaged when the day feels small. Now, don't make the mistake of seeing these layers as separate. They should be connected. Your immediate why should feed your near-term outcome, and your near-term outcome should be a step toward your long-term impact. That cohesion is what turns random study sessions into meaningful progress. Let me give you a concrete example. Imagine a student, Hannah, studying environmental science in Norway. Her long-term impact is clear. She wants to influence local communities to adopt sustainable fishing practices. Her near-term outcome for the first year is to intern with a local NGO and to publish a small research paper. Her immediate why, the driver that helps her wake up, is, each day I learn something that makes my future community safer. When Hannah writes that sentence on a sticky note and keeps it above her desk, she reconnects daily with the big picture. A boring evening of data analysis becomes a stepping stone, not a dead end. You might wonder, what if my long-term vision changes? Good question. Long-term visions should evolve. You are not signing a contract with your younger self. As you grow and meet new people, new interests will appear. The trick is to keep your purpose flexible but not vague. Revisit your vision every 3 months. Ask, does this still feel right? What have I learned that should shape this new version of my vision? That habit itself creates momentum, because you're consciously shaping your future rather than drifting. To help you solidify your vision, Here's a hands-on exercise called the future letter. Spend 30 minutes writing a letter to yourself 5 years from now. Describe your daily life, what you do, who you work with, where you live, and most importantly, how you feel. Be specific. Don't write generalities like I am happy. Instead, write, I wake up around 6:30. I teach a morning class twice a week. I work with a team to develop community workshops on water conservation. And I feel confident in my role because people rely on me for practical solutions. Now keep this letter in a file and read a paragraph of it every Monday morning for 3 months. That reading will shape your daily choices without being heavy-handed. Let's talk about one of the biggest blocks to purpose: comparison. When you compare yourself to others, you often measure your beginning against someone else's middle. That's demotivating. Social media amplifies this by showing you everyone's highlight reels. To protect your purpose, define personal metrics. These are measures that matter only to you. Examples include number of meaningful conversations had in the local language, hours spent on a personal research project, or the number of times you taught someone a concept you learned. Personal metrics keep you focused on growth rather than imitation. Another practical tool is to create an action map. Take your near-term outcome and break it into monthly tasks. For each month, list 2 to 4 actionable items. If your near-term outcome is to present twice, your monthly tasks might be research topic, contact professor for feedback, draft slides, practice with a peer. Each small task gives you a win and fuels motivation. The trick here is not to overload. Small, consistent wins beat massive, irregular efforts. Motivation is not only psychological, it's social. Your purpose is strengthened by people who understand it. Find 2 or 3 accountability friends. These are peers who will ask, what's one thing you want to achieve this week? And actually check in. Accountability partners can be classmates, roommates, or someone from a student club. The point is not to create pressure, but to create gentle, consistent reminders that your purpose is real. Weekly 15-minute check-ins are enough. Now let's talk about the emotional energy that fuels purpose. Meaningful progress. Meaningful progress is not always measurable through grades. It can be a deeper understanding of a topic, a new friendship that expands your worldview, or a small public speaking moment that previously terrified you. Reward meaningful progress. When something feels significant to you, celebrate. Maybe celebrate with a favorite meal, or by taking a day trip. These little rituals tie joy to progress and increase your intrinsic motivation. But vision alone can also create pressure. If you see a huge gap between where you are and where you want to be, it can be overwhelming. That's why breaking vision down into near-term and immediate goals is crucial. Another technique to reduce pressure is time batching. Allocate a specific chunk of time each week for long-term work and protect it. No distractions. For instance, Sunday mornings can be your vision time. Use this block to read about your field, network, or work on a long-term project. Regular small investments compound over time. Let's be pragmatic about setbacks. Studying abroad will produce unexpected challenges. Visa issues, failed assignments, cultural misunderstandings. Your vision should include contingency plans, not to be pessimistic, but to be resilient. Ask yourself, if I face a major setback, what are 3 immediate steps I can take? Perhaps it's reaching out to an advisor, reorganizing your study plan, or finding a local support center. Contingency plans reduce anxiety and make you more likely to bounce back quickly. Another helpful mindset is identity-based motivation. Instead of saying, I want to study harder, say, I am a curious learner. Identity statements are powerful because they guide small choices. If you identify as curious, you will naturally choose activities that satisfy curiosity, which leads to learning without forcing yourself. Build small identity statements that are believable and positive. I am the type of person who asks questions. Or, I am the type of person who follows through on small weekly tasks. These tiny identity nudges create consistent behavior. Finally, let's talk about rituals that make vision tangible. One is a vision board, digital or physical. Fill it with images, quotes, and short phrases that represent your long-term impact. Place it where you'll see it daily. But don't stop at images. Add a short sentence next to each image describing the next action step. If your board shows a community workshop, add research local NGOs by March as the next action. This links the emotional pull of the board to concrete behavior. Another ritual is monthly reflection. At the end of each month, take 20 minutes to answer 3 questions. What progress did I make? What surprised me? What is one action I will take next month? Write the answers in a simple notebook. This habit keeps your vision alive and helps you adapt. To close this part, remember this simple sentence. Purpose without action is a wish. Action without purpose is a routine. The real power comes when purpose and action meet, when your vision becomes the reason you take the small steps every day. So right now, take a breath and think about your 3-layer vision. If you haven't written it down, pause and do this. Write 1 line for each layer. Immediate why, near-term outcome, long-term impact. Keep it somewhere visible. Revisit it weekly. Let it shape small action steps. Let it forgive change. Purpose is not a rigid contract. It's a living engine. Fuel. Part 5. Finding balance, beating burnout, and loving the journey. You know, one of the biggest mistakes students make when studying abroad is trying to do everything. They want to get top grades, have an active social life, explore new places every weekend, maybe work part-time, and still keep in touch with everyone back home. It sounds exciting, and it is. But it can also be exhausting. After a few months, you start feeling like your energy tank is running low, and that's when burnout begins to creep in. Let's be honest. Burnout is real, and it's not just about being tired. It's that feeling when even simple tasks feel heavy, when you start losing interest in things that used to excite you, when motivation feels like it's slipping through your fingers. And for students abroad, it's often mixed with homesickness, loneliness, and culture shock. So how do you find balance? How do you keep your mental health in check while still making the most out of this amazing journey? First, I want to start with something simple but powerful. Slow down. There's this pressure to always be productive, to always be doing something useful. But sometimes, doing nothing is the most useful thing you can do. Take time to rest, go for a quiet walk, sit in a park and watch people, call a friend just to talk about random stuff. These moments of rest are what recharge your motivation. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? When I studied abroad, I used to plan my week like a soldier going to battle. Every hour was scheduled. Classes, gym, part-time job, study sessions, and social events. It looked good on paper, but I was constantly running. One day I realized that I hadn't taken a single day off in months. I was always doing, never being. So I started something new. I gave myself permission to have lazy days. Days when I didn't have to achieve anything. I'd just stay in bed, make coffee, and maybe read a novel or watch a show in the language I was learning. And guess what? Those lazy days became essential. They helped me bounce back stronger, more focused, and happier. Finding balance also means setting boundaries. You don't have to say yes to everything. When you're in a new country, there's this fear of missing out, FOMO. You feel like if you don't join every party, every trip, every hangout, you'll miss the full experience. But here's the truth. You don't have to experience everything to make your time abroad meaningful. You just need to experience the right things for you. Sometimes that means saying no. No to staying up all night when you have an exam tomorrow. No to taking extra shifts when you're already tired. No to toxic friendships that drain your energy. And you know what? That's okay. Saying no is a way of saying yes. Yes to your health. Yes to your focus. Yes to your long-term goals. Another thing that keeps you balanced is routine. I know it sounds boring, but routine creates stability in an unpredictable environment. When you're studying abroad, everything around you changes. The language, the food, the culture, even the weather. Having a small routine gives you a sense of control. Maybe it's a morning ritual, making tea, journaling for 5 minutes, or listening to your favorite podcast while walking to class. These little anchors keep your mind steady. For me, my morning walk to class became my mental reset. I'd put on my headphones, play a calm playlist, and just walk slowly, watching people rush around me. That short walk reminded me that I didn't have to rush. I was exactly where I needed to be. It became a small but powerful ritual that helped me handle stress better. Now let's talk about something most students ignore: your physical health. You can't feel mentally strong if your body is always tired, hungry, or dehydrated. Eat real food. I know instant noodles are cheap and easy, but your body needs more than that. Cook when you can. It's not only healthier, but also therapeutic. When you cook, you create something with your hands. And that's a surprisingly satisfying feeling. It also connects you with your culture. Maybe you'll try cooking a dish from home and invite your friends to taste it. That's how you bring a piece of your identity to your new world. Exercise also helps more than you think. I'm not saying you need to go to the gym every day or run marathons. Just move. Take the stairs, walk instead of taking the bus, dance in your room. Physical movement clears your head and releases stress. And don't forget sleep. I know. It's hard to sleep well when you're juggling classes, deadlines, and social life. But sleep is the foundation of your energy. Without enough rest, your motivation drops, your memory weakens, and even your mood changes. When I finally started prioritizing sleep, I realized how much more focused and optimistic I felt. Sleep is not a luxury. It's a necessity. Now, let's move to something deeper. Mindset. Motivation isn't just about what you do. It's about how you think. One mindset shift that changed everything for me was learning to see setbacks differently. When you live abroad, not everything will go smoothly. You'll fail a test. You'll get lost. You'll say something awkward in the local language. Maybe your project won't turn out as expected. And in those moments, it's easy to be hard on yourself. But what if you saw those setbacks as part of the process, not as proof of failure? Every mistake teaches you something. Every tough day builds resilience. Every time you choose to keep going despite frustration, you're growing stronger than you realize. Motivation grows when you stop chasing perfection and start celebrating progress. One small trick I use: at the end of each week, I write down 3 things I'm proud of, no matter how small. Maybe I cooked something new. Maybe I spoke confidently in class. Maybe I just managed to survive a stressful week. Writing these down reminds me that I'm moving forward, even if it doesn't always feel like it. And let's not forget connection. Humans are social beings. We need people to feel grounded. Make friends who uplift you, not just those who happen to be in the same class. Find your support circle, people who share your values, your humor, or your goals. Talk to them when you feel low. Sometimes a 5-minute chat can reset your whole day. Also, don't be afraid to reach out for help when you need it. Most universities have counselors or student advisors. Talking to a professional doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. It means you're taking care of yourself. Remember, mental health is not a sign of strength or weakness. It's a part of being human. If I could give one piece of advice to anyone studying abroad, it would be this: don't treat your journey like a race. Treat it like a story. In a race, you focus on the finish line. You rush, you compare, you stress. But in a story, every chapter matters. The good ones, the bad ones, the slow ones. You can't skip chapters because each one shapes who you become. So enjoy this story. Notice the small details, the smell of your campus coffee shop, the way locals greet each other, the first time you understood a joke in another language. These are the memories you'll cherish years later, not your grades. And finally, remember why you started. Whenever you feel lost or unmotivated, go back to that original reason, the one that pushed you to leave your comfort zone and start this adventure. Maybe it was to grow. Maybe to make your family proud. Maybe to discover who you really are. Whatever it is, reconnect with that reason. Write it somewhere you can see it. On your desk, in your phone wallpaper, or even on your bathroom mirror. Every time you look at it, remind yourself, this is why I'm here. So, as we close this part of the journey, I want you to take a deep breath and remind yourself, you're doing great. You may not have it all figured out, and that's perfectly fine. No one does. Motivation isn't about feeling inspired every single day. It's about staying committed even when inspiration fades. It's about trusting that every small step is leading you somewhere meaningful. You're living a chapter that many people only dream of. So, take care of your mind, your body, and your heart. Learn, grow, rest, and keep believing in the version of yourself that decided to take this leap in the first place. Because that version of you, brave, curious, and determined, is still right here, guiding you forward. Part 6, The Confidence Curve, Rebuilding Yourself Abroad. Let's talk about confidence. Because studying abroad isn't just about learning in a new country. It's about relearning yourself. When you first arrive, everything feels new, exciting, and a little terrifying. You're standing in the middle of an airport, holding 2 suitcases, staring at signs in another language, trying to figure out where to go next. You've dreamed about this for months, maybe years, but in that moment, it suddenly hits you. You're really on your own now. At first, that realization feels empowering. You're free. You're independent. You can do whatever you want. But as the days go by, reality sets in. You mispronounce something at a cafe, people don't understand your accent, or you get a disappointing grade on your first essay because the academic style here is totally different from what you're used to. Slowly, that initial excitement starts to fade, and what replaces it is doubt. You start asking yourself questions like, am I good enough? Did I make a mistake coming here? Why does everyone else seem more confident than me? And that's how the confidence curve begins. At the start, your confidence is high because of the thrill of newness, but then it dips sharply as reality challenges your expectations. That dip is painful. It's the part of the curve where you feel small, invisible, even foolish. But here's the beautiful truth. That dip is also where real growth begins. Because confidence isn't built from success, it's built from recovery. When you fail a little, when you mess up your first presentation, or get lost in the subway, or accidentally use the wrong word in class, and everyone laughs, those are the moments that teach you resilience. You start realizing that failure abroad isn't the end of the world. It's just part of the learning curve. I remember talking to a student named Riko from Japan. She told me that during her first month in Canada, she was terrified of speaking English. Even ordering coffee made her nervous. One day, she accidentally said, "Can I order a medium hot chocolate tall?" Basically mixing 3 cup sizes into one. The barista laughed kindly and said, "So, do you want a tall or a medium?" Riko felt her face burn with embarrassment. She avoided that cafe for 2 weeks, but then something changed. She realized the world hadn't ended. The barista wasn't cruel. In fact, she was trying to help. So Riko went back again, and again. By the end of her semester, she was chatting casually with locals, and even became the vice president of her university's Japanese culture club. That's the confidence curve in action. You fall, you feel humiliated, you want to hide, but you show up again. And each time you do, the fear loses a little more power. Here's something people rarely tell you. Confidence doesn't come before action. It comes after. You don't wait until you feel brave to try something new. You do it while still scared. And that's what makes it powerful. Think about it. Every confident person you admire, that classmate who speaks fluently, that professor who seems effortlessly charismatic, that friend who travels solo, they all started as beginners. They just didn't stop trying. Confidence grows like a muscle. You don't build it by thinking about it. You build it by using it. Start with small wins. Introduce yourself to someone new. Speak up once in class. Volunteer to lead a small group project. Each of these acts might seem tiny, but they add up. They send a message to your brain that says, "See, I can do this. And yes, sometimes you'll fail. But the key is to fail publicly and gracefully. Because when you can laugh at your mistakes instead of hiding from them, people start to respect you more. They see your courage, not your flaws." Another part of the confidence curve is self-comparison. One of the biggest confidence killers abroad. It's so easy to look around and feel like everyone's doing better. Someone gets an internship. Someone posts a picture with 10 new friends. Someone else seems fluent after 3 months. And there you are, just trying to survive your next group presentation. But remember, you're only seeing their highlights, not their behind the scenes. Everyone has their own dip in the curve. You just can't see it. Confidence doesn't mean being the best. It means being better than you were yesterday. If you look back at yourself 3 months ago and see progress, even small progress, you're already succeeding. Let me tell you about Marco, a student from Italy who studied business in Singapore. He told me something I'll never forget. He said, "In my first semester, I tried to sound like everyone else, to speak like a native, to dress like them, to blend in. But the more I tried, the less confident I felt." Then one day, during a class discussion, he shared a story about his family's small restaurant back in Italy and how it taught him about customer loyalty. His professor stopped the class and said, "That's a brilliant perspective, something only you could have shared." That was the moment Marco realized that true confidence comes not from imitation, but from authenticity. He didn't need to sound like everyone else. He needed to sound like himself. So here's the lesson. Stop trying to erase your accent. Stop apologizing for being different. Those things are not weaknesses. They're your identity. They're what make your story worth hearing. Every culture, every background, adds flavor to the global mix of voices. And when you start seeing your uniqueness as a strength, your confidence grows naturally. But what about when confidence crashes completely? You know those days when nothing seems to go right. Your assignments pile up, your English feels clumsy, your friends are busy, and you just want to hide under your blanket and binge watch something? That's when you need what I call gentle persistence. It means giving yourself permission to rest, but not to quit. It's okay to have off days. It's okay to cry, to feel frustrated, to miss home. You're human, but don't let one bad week define your story. Take a break, then try again. Step back, then step forward. Gentle persistence is what keeps you moving through the lowest part of the confidence curve until you reach the upward slope again. And while you're rebuilding, surround yourself with people who lift you up. Find friends who cheer for your progress, not compete with it. Avoid toxic circles where everyone's pretending to be perfect. Because perfection is a performance, not a reality. Real confidence grows in safe spaces, in communities where you can be both proud and vulnerable. Now let's talk about one of the most underestimated confidence tools: celebration. Most of us only celebrate big achievements: graduating, getting a scholarship, landing a job. But what about the smaller victories, like surviving your first winter alone, like making a phone call in another language without freezing, like figuring out how to open a bank account, navigate public transport, or cook rice without burning it? Those moments deserve celebration, because they're the building blocks of resilience. Every time you acknowledge a small win, you reinforce your belief in yourself. I used to tell my students, don't wait for others to validate your progress. Be your own witness, write down your wins, speak them out loud, reward yourself for effort, not just outcome. That's how you train your brain to see yourself as capable. Another truth about confidence is that it fluctuates. Even after years abroad, even after success, there will still be days when you doubt yourself again. That's okay. Confidence isn't permanent. It's cyclical. Think of it like waves. It rises, it falls, it rises again. What matters isn't avoiding the low tide. It's knowing how to swim through it. When you hit a low point, don't interpret it as failure. It's just your system resetting, preparing for another level of growth. Sometimes, losing confidence is the best thing that can happen, because it humbles you enough to learn again. Before we close this part, I want to share one last story. There was a student named Thao from Vietnam who studied in Melbourne. She told me that her biggest struggle wasn't language or culture. It was believing in herself. She said, I kept thinking everyone else was smarter, that maybe the university made a mistake accepting me. But then, one night during finals, she helped a friend understand a complex finance concept. Her friend said, "You explained that better than the professor." That small comment changed everything. She realized that confidence doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from realizing you already know something. She didn't suddenly become fearless, but she started speaking up more, volunteering answers, joining competitions. And by her final semester, she was mentoring new international students. That's the full circle of the confidence curve, from doubt to courage to contribution. So if you're listening to this and your confidence feels shaky right now, take a deep breath. It's not a sign that you're weak or unprepared. It's a sign that you're stretching, learning, transforming. Confidence isn't about pretending you're unshakable. It's about standing up again after each stumble. It's about knowing that even when you feel small, you're still moving forward. You don't need to have it all together to be confident. You just need to keep going, gently, bravely, and authentically. Because one day, you'll look back at this version of yourself, the one who doubted, hesitated, and tried anyway. And you'll realize that this was the moment you were truly becoming confident. Not when everything was easy, but when you chose to keep believing in yourself anyway. Part 7. The Art of Balance, Studying, Working, and Living. Abroad. Let's be real. Studying abroad isn't a vacation. It's not just about scenic campuses, cozy coffee shops, and weekend trips to new cities. Once the excitement wears off, you realize something. Life abroad is a juggle. You're not just a student. You're your own cook, cleaner, accountant, translator, travel agent, and sometimes even therapist. Balancing all that can be exhausting. Some days, you wake up full of motivation, ready to conquer your assignments, go to class, hit the gym, and still have dinner with friends. Other days, you wake up and think, I just want to survive today, and honestly, that's okay. Because balance abroad isn't about perfection. It's about sustainability. Let's talk about that. When you first arrive, it's easy to say yes to everything. You want to explore, meet people, join clubs, maybe even get a part-time job. You say yes to late-night hangouts, yes to extra shifts, yes to weekend trips. It feels exciting, you're living fully, right? But a few weeks later, you start noticing the cracks. You're falling asleep in lectures. Your assignments are rushed. Your energy feels drained. And suddenly, something that once felt like freedom now feels like chaos. That's when you realize balance isn't something you find. It's something you create. You create it by knowing what matters most to you, by deciding what deserves your time and what doesn't. I once met a student named Leandro from Brazil. He was in Australia, studying business while working at a restaurant 5 nights a week. He told me, at first I wanted to prove I could handle everything. Study, work, travel, socialize. But after a few months, I was constantly tired. I wasn't doing well in class, and I barely had energy to talk to anyone. So he made a change. He cut his work hours slightly, started waking up earlier, and used Sunday mornings to review lectures instead of sleeping in. He said, I didn't do less, I just did what mattered more. Within a semester, his grades improved and his anxiety dropped. That's the art of balance. It's not about doing everything. It's about doing enough to move forward without losing yourself. Here's something I want you to remember. Being busy isn't the same as being productive. You can fill your schedule from sunrise to midnight and still feel empty inside. Because productivity isn't just about tasks. It's about alignment. Are you spending your time in ways that reflect your goals and values? Or are you just reacting to everything around you? Abroad, it's easy to fall into the trap of constant busyness. You think, if I'm always moving, I must be doing something right. But sometimes movement is just distraction in disguise. Balance begins when you stop. Confusing activity with progress. Now let's talk about part-time work, something almost every international student faces. Working while studying can be empowering. You earn your own money, you learn independence, and you build real-world skills. But it can also be overwhelming if you don't manage it well. The key is boundaries. Set clear rules for yourself. How many hours you'll work, how much sleep you'll get, and when you'll study. It sounds simple, but most people fail because they never define their limits. You can't pour from an empty cup. If work drains all your energy, your studies and social life will suffer. I knew a student named May from China who worked part-time in a bakery. She said something that stuck with me. I used to think working hard meant saying yes to every shift. Now I realize working smart means knowing when to say no. She wasn't lazy. She was strategic. She learned that protecting her energy wasn't selfish. It was essential. Balance also means managing your mental load. When you live abroad, your brain works overtime. You're constantly switching languages, adapting to new rules, figuring out logistics. That invisible cognitive effort adds up. So give yourself permission to rest. Real rest, not just scrolling on your phone pretending to unwind. Rest isn't wasted time, it's recovery. And recovery is what allows you to keep going without burning out. Try creating small rituals of rest. A 10-minute walk after class, a cup of tea without your phone, a quiet Sunday with no plans. These moments might seem insignificant, but they refill your emotional tank. And then there's social balance, one of the trickiest parts. Abroad, you meet people from everywhere. Some become close friends. Others come and go. Sometimes you'll have weeks full of social events, and sometimes you'll feel completely alone. It's easy to feel guilty during either phase. Guilty for saying no to people, or guilty for not having enough people to say yes to. But social balance means accepting that your social life will ebb and flow. You don't need to attend every party to belong, and you don't need to isolate yourself to recharge. It's okay to have quiet seasons and lively seasons. Both are valid. If you ever feel torn between social life and solitude, ask yourself, what does my energy need right now? If you need connection, reach out. If you need rest, take it. Both are acts of self-care, Let's talk about academics for a second. One of the hardest parts of balancing life abroad is keeping up with different teaching styles. Professors may expect more self-study, or group projects might feel harder because of language barriers. The secret? Don't aim for perfection. Aim for consistency. A student who studies 2 hours a day consistently will outperform one who studies 10 hours once a week. Set small academic habits. Review notes after class. Start assignments early, even if it's just writing a title. Use small chunks of focus instead of waiting for motivation. Remember, motivation fades, but structure sustains. And if you ever feel lost academically, don't be afraid to ask for help. Most universities have writing centers, tutors, or student mentors. Asking for support isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Now, here's a topic that often goes unspoken: emotional balance. Living abroad means constant emotional fluctuation. One moment you're proud and inspired, the next you're homesick or anxious. It's normal. The trick is not to suppress those emotions, but to navigate them. Start by naming how you feel. Instead of saying, "I'm fine," say, "I'm tired," or "I'm overwhelmed." Naming emotions helps you process them. And when you miss home, allow yourself to miss it. Call your parents. Cook a familiar dish. Listen to music from your childhood. Missing home doesn't mean you're weak. It means you love deeply, but also make space for new emotions. Gratitude, curiosity, excitement, even discomfort. They're all part of the emotional landscape of growth. The goal isn't to eliminate negative feelings. The goal is to stay steady while they pass. Here's another thing I've learned. Balance doesn't mean giving equal time to everything. It means giving the right time to the right thing. There will be seasons when study takes priority, like exam season. There will be seasons when work demands more, and there will be seasons when you need to pause everything and take care of yourself. Balance isn't a daily achievement. It's a long-term rhythm. Think of it like music. Sometimes the tempo speeds up. Sometimes it slows down. But what matters is that it keeps flowing. One of the most powerful ways to maintain balance is through reflection. Take time once a week to ask yourself, what went well this week? What drained me? What gave me joy? What can I adjust next week? This small check-in helps you stay aware of your life instead of running on autopilot. Because imbalance often starts when we stop noticing ourselves. And then there's something I call the balance triangle, made up of 3 elements: purpose, people, and peace. When one side is off, life feels unstable. Purpose keeps you moving. It's your reason for being abroad. People keep you grounded. They remind you that you're not alone. Peace keeps you sane. It's your inner calm that reminds you success isn't worth burnout. Check this triangle often. When you feel overwhelmed, ask yourself which side you've been neglecting. Maybe you've been chasing purpose but forgetting people. Maybe you've been socializing nonstop but losing peace. Adjust gently. Balance isn't fixed. It's flexible. Before we wrap up, I want to tell you about Hana, a student from Korea who studied architecture in Canada. She once told me, "During my first year, I tried to be perfect at everything. I worked, studied, exercised, joined clubs, and ended up in the hospital with exhaustion. That's when I realized balance isn't doing more. It's knowing what's enough." After that, she started doing something beautiful. Every Sunday night, she would write a simple list titled, "Enough for the Week." It included just 3 things: study well, eat properly, and talk to one friend. If she achieved those, she considered her week a success. By her final year, she wasn't just surviving abroad, she was thriving, calm, focused, and genuinely happy. So my friend, if you're listening right now and feeling overwhelmed, I want you to remember this. You're not failing at balance. You're learning it. Life abroad is dynamic. It moves, shifts, surprises you. You won't always get it right, but that's okay. Balance isn't about control. It's about awareness. It's about knowing when to slow down, when to push forward, and when to simply breathe. Give yourself permission to be a work in progress. Some weeks will be messy. Some will be smooth. Both are part of your journey. And someday when you look back, you won't remember every assignment or every shift you worked. You'll remember the rhythm you created, the way you learned to juggle life and still smile. That's the real success story. Not doing it all, but doing it with grace. Part 8. Building Emotional Resilience Abroad. Bending without breaking. There's a moment that almost every international student faces, the day when the excitement fades, and the silence grows louder than you expected. At first, everything feels magical. You walk down new streets, order coffee in another language, and feel proud every time someone understands you. Every mistake feels like an adventure. Every new friend feels like family. But then, somewhere between your third essay, your fifth grocery run, and your 20th rainy morning, the magic wears off. You wake up, look outside, and for the first time, it doesn't feel new. It just feels hard. That's when you realize studying abroad isn't just about exploring the world. It's about exploring yourself. And the lesson that will carry you through it all is resilience. Resilience doesn't mean you never cry, never doubt, never fall apart. It means you learn how to rebuild yourself each time you do. It's like a tree in a storm. A weak branch breaks when the wind hits. A strong one bends, but when the storm passes, it rises again. Living abroad tests every part of you, your confidence, your patience, your identity. And that's okay. You're not meant to be unshakable. You're meant to be flexible. I remember talking to Sophia, a student from Argentina who studied in Melbourne. She was brilliant, full of ideas, but terrified of speaking English in class. Every presentation was a nightmare. Her hands shook, her voice trembled, and she always left the room feeling embarrassed. One night, she called her mom crying, saying, "I think I made a mistake coming here." Her mom listened quietly and said, "Mi amor, courage isn't about being fearless. It's about showing up, even when you're scared." That line changed everything for Sophia. She started small, joining a tiny conversation club, volunteering for short presentations, recording herself speaking just to see her progress. It wasn't fast, and it wasn't easy, but month by month she got stronger. By her final year, she wasn't the quiet girl in the back row anymore. She was hosting cultural events for new students, welcoming others the way she once wished someone had welcomed her. That's resilience in action. It's not about being fearless. It's about not letting fear stop you. Here's the truth most people don't talk about. When you study abroad, your biggest lessons don't come from lectures or textbooks. They come from the quiet moments when you feel lost, but decide to keep going anyway. It's the night you cook dinner alone after crying. It's the morning you go to class after failing a test. It's the time you smile at a stranger even when your heart feels heavy. Those are the invisible victories that shape you. But let's be honest, loneliness is real. Even surrounded by people, you can feel completely alone. It's not just missing your family, it's missing the sense of belonging. At home, you knew who you were. Abroad, you start to question everything. Your accent, your culture, your worth. That's when resilience begins, when you learn to be your own source of comfort. You start to enjoy small silences. You find peace in your routines. You realize that solitude doesn't mean emptiness. It means space to grow. Learning to be okay with yourself is one of the most powerful things you'll ever do. Another key to resilience is self-compassion. Most students are kind to others but harsh with themselves. They say things like, "Why can't I speak fluently yet? Everyone else is smarter. I'll never fit in." But think about it. Would you talk to a friend that way? Probably not. Resilience starts when you speak to yourself with kindness. Instead of saying, "I'm failing," try, "I'm learning." Instead of, "I'm not good enough," say, "I'm not there yet, but I'm improving." It sounds small, but language shapes your mindset. The way you talk to yourself becomes the way you face the world. Let's talk about failure, because it's one of the most painful but valuable teachers abroad. You might fail an exam, lose a part-time job, or get rejected from something you worked hard for. When that happens, it hurts. You might want to give up, but resilience means asking, "What can I learn from this?" instead of "Why did this happen to me?" When you shift from blaming yourself to understanding yourself, everything changes. Failure stops being a wall. It becomes a mirror, showing you where to grow next. And remember, no one's success story is smooth. Behind every confident graduate or happy traveler, there were tears, doubts, and long nights of questioning. The fact that you're still trying means you're already succeeding. There's a quote I love. Resilience isn't about bouncing back. It's about bouncing forward. When you bounce back, you go back to who you were. When you bounce forward, you evolve into someone stronger, wiser, calmer, and that's exactly what happens when you live abroad. Every challenge, every awkward conversation, every setback pushes you to grow in ways you never imagined. You start becoming someone who doesn't panic at small problems. You start trusting yourself in uncertainty. You stop running away from change and start dancing with it. But let's be real. Resilience doesn't grow in isolation. You need connection. You need community. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to say, I need help. That sentence doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. It opens doors. It builds bridges. It allows others to care for you, and you for them. You'd be surprised how many people are quietly struggling too. Once you open up, you'll find that vulnerability connects more deeply than perfection ever could. And here's another secret. Gratitude builds resilience. When you focus only on what's missing, life feels heavy. But when you start noticing what's good, even tiny things, the weight lifts a little. Try writing down 3 small things you're grateful for each night. Maybe your bus arrived on time. Maybe you understood a full conversation in your second language. Maybe your coffee tasted perfect this morning. These moments remind you that even on hard days, there's still light. And sometimes, that light is enough to keep you moving. Culture shock is another test of resilience. It doesn't come all at once, it comes in waves. At first, everything's exciting. Then suddenly you feel frustrated, confused, out of place. The rules don't make sense. The jokes fall flat. You miss your old rhythm. But remember, culture shock isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign of growth. It means your mind is stretching, learning, and adjusting to a new world. Eventually, what once felt strange will start to feel normal. You'll find your balance. Part of you shaped by your home, part of you shaped by your new environment. And that mix, that's your new identity forming. To stay grounded through all of this, build anchors, small habits that keep you steady. Cook something from home once a week. Listen to a song in your language when you feel homesick. Keep photos of your loved ones nearby. And at the same time, let yourself adopt new rituals, like evening walks, weekly meetups, or quiet time with a book. Anchors remind you of who you are, but flexibility reminds you that you can become more. Here's something most people forget. You don't have to be positive all the time to be resilient. Some days, you'll feel tired. Some days, you'll cry for no reason. That doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're feeling. Don't force fake happiness. Instead, choose authenticity. Say to yourself, today was hard, but I made it through. That honesty will carry you farther than any motivational quote ever will. And over time, something beautiful happens. What once terrified you now challenges you. What once broke you now teaches you. You start responding calmly where you used to panic. You start believing in yourself again. You realize that resilience isn't built overnight. It's built moment by moment. Every time you get up. Every time you try again. Every time you choose hope instead of giving up. That's you, growing stronger, even when you can't see it yet. I remember another story. Min, a Vietnamese student in Canada, he once said, "My first winter abroad was the hardest time of my life. I wasn't just fighting the cold, I was fighting myself." He described walking to class through snow, hands freezing, mind heavy, feeling invisible. But over time, warmth found him, not from the weather but from people. A roommate who shared soup, a teacher who said, "You're doing great," a friend who simply listened. He told me, resilience isn't facing everything alone. It's accepting help and still believing I belong. Years later, Min graduated, got a job, and now helps new students adjust to life abroad. His pain became his purpose. And that's what resilience really is. Turning the things that once hurt you into the things that help others heal. So, if you're listening right now, sitting somewhere far from home, feeling small or unsure, please hear this. You are not failing. You are transforming. Every difficult day is shaping your strength. Every challenge is refining your courage. Every time you get back up, you are proving that you can bend without breaking. And one day, You'll tell your own story about how you almost gave up, but didn't. About how you grew stronger than you ever thought possible. Because resilience isn't just for surviving abroad. It's for thriving anywhere life takes you next. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If this message spoke to you, take a deep breath, smile, and remind yourself you're doing better than you think. I'll see you in the next episode of Speak Smart IELTS, where we'll talk about finding your identity abroad, how living overseas changes who you are. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, your journey is just beginning. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you soon.